There are different shades of narcissism, like in anything for sure. But yes, I have to be honest that yes, I'm a narcissist also. Unless you have come to terms with your self-esteem. And for a narcissist, it is very difficult to come to terms because he carries this scar from his childhood. I was never appreciated. I was never, approved of. I never got this acknowledgement. So it is constantly, that's why it's a pathological need, it's a pathological disorder, for example. Money plays a different role. If money is giving me the power, if money is giving me the fame, for example, I can host let's say, a cricket tournament in my name because I have the money, right? Then that money is important for me. But if I cannot use the money to give me my major needs, which is power, fame, prestige, then that money is not important.
Welcome to the show, The Missing Link with Amit. Today's episode is The Narcissist as a Leader. Welcome, Amit.
Thank you, Vinay.
Amit, are you a narcissist?
I have to say yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting in front of a camera doing podcasts in the first place.
Okay.
Because, that people without a pinch of narcissism, they don't remain functional in the sphere of coming out and sharing their ideas or sharing their views, etc. But we have to get a little bit more detail into it. There are different shades of narcissism, like in anything for sure. But yes, I have to be honest that yes, I'm a narcissist also.
When you say shades of narcissism, can we know more about it? What is narcissism?
Well, first of all, narcissism is considered to be a pathological disorder, and this has been researched upon, and it has been studied for a very, very long time. I mean, it comes from the name Narcissus, the Greek personality, who fell in love with his own image when he happened to look. And we have similar stories from our own, mythological stories, Mahabharata, etc., when he sees the image and he falls in love with that. And this is normal human tendency, this aspect of self-love. And that's why I said that, and research brings it out, that without a pinch of love for yourself, without a pinch of narcissism, you cannot really be functional as a leader, okay? But having said that, let me share a little bit about the pathology part of it. I hope the viewers don't get scared that I'm not an academic, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a psychologist. But yes, I've been a practicing manager, leader, whatever, for many, many years. And I found these topics interesting enough to delve a little bit deep. So I'm sharing just the tip of the iceberg, maybe. So narcissism as a tendency is why it is called a pathological disorder, because this develops from lack of acknowledgement, lack of appreciation that a child grows up in due to different reasons. Nobody is to blame over here, but people who develop with this lack of appreciation, for example, or acknowledgement, this remains as an ungratified need. And when we become adults, they kind of manifest themselves as what is called and seen as narcissistic tendencies, which is basically a endless pursuit for power, prestige, not money, but power and prestige and fame. And that's what we see manifested when it is called the reactive narcissist, for example, on one side of the spectrum where it is very, very intense. We see it in characters, for example, in today's times, whether it is Trump or Putin or many of political leaders that we know. You see it in corporate like hell. I mean, you see that a lot of narcissistic leaders actually make it to the top, but they can't stay there, for example, for long if they are reactive narcissists. I'll come maybe a little bit later to share how do you see somebody as a reactive narcissist as opposed to the good side of narcissism, which is called the constructive narcissist. I will come to that a bit later.
So I presume that you're from the constructive narcissist, which you said I am
Hopefully
one.
so. I could sustain myself at the helm of organizational responsibilities as a leader and manager for a bit more than a long time.
So how do you have a meaningful relationship with your subordinates or in your team, being a constructive narcissist? and still manage yourself and handle yourself and still have a meaningful relationship?
Vinay, I mean, if we have to use these terms, then I'm tempted to kind of share from my book, The Ascent, which is practicing managers growth mantra, because this is coming from academic research, and this is not my own research. I referred to it, I learned it. So is it okay if I share?
Please.
So this is, viewers, this is from Professor Chatterjee from the McGill University, which also happens to be an alma mater of mine, but I didn't study directly under him, but I happened to refer to his findings, his research, when I was working on my master's thesis on leadership and other topics. So Chatterjee basically divides the spectrum of narcissism into three parts. The pejorative part is the reactive narcissist, where the tendencies normally are where you find somebody rejecting somebody, and it comes from unresponsible parenting, absence of secure attachment, for example, okay? And the reactions from such a personality is normally pervasive, very severe and frequent, okay? And also it combines with exhibitionism, grandiosity, ruthlessness, coldness, and how it manifests in the domain of leadership and management, where all of you work in, for example, is that you see that these kind of leaders bring in transformational orientation. Okay, they are in a kind of expelling or expunging mode. They either want something 100% or they reject something 100%. So it's 0 or 100, for example. Okay, they can be seen as quite cruel taskmasters, and of course that is what then builds a kind of a toxic environment in the organization that they are in. They are enraged by criticism. Not only that they cannot handle, they are actually enraged by criticism. Okay, so the decision making behaviors of them is they take major decisions. Okay, and sometimes they will, of course, even turn back on the decision, as we sometimes see nowadays with the famous decision making. Okay, and normally they do not consult somebody else. Normally they come up because they feel inferior if they have to consult. They feel their prestige is reduced, for example, okay, right? And for sure, they are very hungry for both prestige, fame and power. On the other side of the spectrum, you have the constructive narcissists.
Just hold on.
Yeah, please.
With this particular thing, are they long lasting or it is short run period that they go into?
Well, at least in my studies and in my experience, they are not long lasting. Okay, they are not long lasting. People, when they reach the peak of whatever domain they are in, and they immediately start falling from there, because more power they get, more fame they get, they can't handle it.
And most often they are individual players than a team player.
They absolutely are individual players. They don't consult anybody, so they lose. They lose even their own followers who initially had followed them when they were not exhibiting this kind of extreme behavioral manifestations. Okay, I mean, history has it. For example, you think about Napoleon. Okay, and Napoleon declared himself as the head of the army. He was brought in the head of the French army, right? And he brought in the Napoleonic code, as it say, the égalité, the fraternité, and liberté. But then he fought against the aristocrats. He dissolved the aristocracy. But then, after some time, after some victories here and there, he declared himself as the emperor of France. Right? He brought back aristocracy amongst his followers, amongst his chamchas, as we say in India, for example. And that is when his fall began. Okay.
So these guys always need a person who will pump them up, or a sidekick, or somebody who will actually
Absolutely. I mean, it works both ways. Their sidekicks, they need the sidekicks to,
boost their ego.
So that everybody is saying yes, yes, yes. So they need these yes men and women around, for sure. But there is another value of the sidekick. We will come to that later, maybe. For example, if they have to survive. But that is what brings me to the other extreme of the narcissistic.
This is an acute stage.
This is what's called the reactive narcissist. Okay, yes, the acute or the more, I would say, as I said, the pejorative meaning of narcissism comes from this kind of psychological makeup of people, narcissists.
And most of our audience actually relate to the term only with, I guess, this particular one.
Maybe, because that's why, we chose to do this episode, because it should not be only one side of the coin. There's another side of the coin, And as Case Device's research blog brings out, that you have the other side, which is also a narcissist, which he refers to as a constructive narcissist. And a constructive narcissist, early life, for example, as opposed to the reactive where, the child has grown up in a rejecting atmosphere, completely, oblivious of any appreciation, any acknowledgement, and it's called unresponsible parenting, as a Device mentioned it. But in a constructive narcissist, he or she has got good enough parenting, okay? He has got good enough acceptance and acknowledgement and appreciation, but not too much. Too much also leads to other problems, for example, because that leads you to believe that you are the best. And nobody can be the best. I think we have touched upon this in another episode of ours. And in the constructive narcissist, their reactions are not pervasive and severe and frequent. They are rare, they are mild, for example, okay, and they are also, they come with a sense of humor. A constructive narcissist can also share their vulnerability, okay, but they have enough of self-love, enough of self-esteem, for example, that they can also have the sense of humor, as I said. They can also actually practice creativity. They also have no dearth of self-confidence, for example. They are ambitious. You can see definitely sometimes that they are quite stubborn, okay. They have a lot of pride in themselves, their capabilities, so they are not suffering from lack of self-esteem.
Do they have the sense of entitlement?
Well, a narcissist does have a sense of entitlement.
The constructive narcissist also?
Even a constructive narcissist, but it's very mild. It's very mild. For example, I'll give you an example. Whether in India or anywhere else in the world, the head of a company will have his own parking slot for his car. And his car normally will be the best car in the parking area in that company grounds, right? I've gone through that myself. Now, I used to feel, that, I have this entitled space. But then I argued with myself and also discussed with my colleagues, my management team, who did not have all, let's say, reserved parking space like mine or my immediate management team, they had. But others didn't have. They were, at least at that time, we were around 500, 600 strong in the people over there, and there were, I'm talking about now, 15 years back, okay, there were still 50, 60 cars. Nowadays, probably there are 200 cars. But then you can see the model of the car, the size and the price tag of the car is going down as you also go down the organizational hierarchy. So the people who are higher up in the hierarchy, okay, right, they kind of go to a rationalization. That's one of the traits, as you know, of a narcissist, for example. They rationalize, yes, it's okay. But they don't. If they are a constructive narcissist, they do not come out as arrogant and as, oh, this is absolutely my right, I don't care, whether you have anything or not. They still can practice empathy. Whereas a reactive narcissist, you will never see practicing empathy. They just cannot do that. They can sympathize,
right,
okay? Because when they sympathize with this thinking and feeling that, they are indulging in generosity. And mark my words, what words came to me is indulging in generosity. They are patronizing. So their behavior is different from a constructive narcissist, which makes it possible for others who are living, let's say, at a lesser responsible or younger position, that they say, no, this is what that position demands and needs. So a constructive narcissist still can empathize and therefore can say, this position needs this position should have that, this is the right of that position. A reactive narcissist on the other side of the spectrum doesn't think about it. They can't empathize, okay? They can only think of themselves. So any decision, anything has to rub off on their own ego, on their own, kind of self-esteem. So, and that is why with the constructive narcissism, you also can see transformative leadership, absolutely, because they have a larger sense of purpose than they themselves.
Right.
Whereas the reactive narcissist decisions will have to rub out on himself or herself. Okay, if a reactive narcissist sees that he or she has to take a decision which will not give him more glory, more fame, more power, he will shirk away from that. But a constructive narcissist will not. Constructive narcissism is still purpose defined for the organization, for the company, for the nation, for whatever, You see great constructive narcissists as also nationalists today, for example. They need not be the reactive narcissist,
Right.
because the reactive narcissists cannot survive for long. They can be temporary. They are very good for causing tremendous disruption, for example. Okay, but a constructive narcissist can also create sustainable growth.
Right.
I'm not saying incremental growth, but sustainable growth, because sustainable growth can also sometimes mean that you really do some, big climb ups, for example, bring in big inflection points through innovation, through creativity, etc. And they know that they need other people. A reactive narcissist feels actually lesser when in his heart of hearts he realizes, no, he needs somebody. Okay, it makes him feel smaller in his own eyes. It makes him go back to his childhood where he was alone, where he didn't get appreciation. See, he has this tremendous need that I have to be acknowledged. It's about me, it's about I. A constructive narcissist can use the word we did it, we have to do it, guys, let's talk, let's discuss. But he will still have the pride that, I was responsible, it's my responsibility to do it and I'm leading it. But a reactive narcissist cannot use the word we. Guys, I tell you this is what we should do. Okay, it's not exactly command and control, but it is the nearest to that as you can get, for example. So that is what I wanted to share in short, okay, without getting into academic mode.
We have self-deceptive ones as well, or it is two contrasting ones?
No, there is, of course, as you know, there is, on any spectrum, there is a middle part which gets revised called the self-deceptive narcissist. But the self-deceptive narcissist is playing a game with himself. And that comes from a very deep, connect to the reality, a very deep disconnect to the reality, sorry. A self-deceptive narcissist is not always sure, but his narcissistic needs does not even allow him to check upon it, to bring in other allies, for example. So a self-deceptive narcissist cannot actually be in leadership positions. Somebody who is not sure, somebody who is wanting that pat from somebody or support but can't even approach somebody for help, also has the need for power and fame, but they rarely achieve that because they don't have the self-confidence. They suffer from dilemmas, for example. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they don't have the narcissistic needs. They have it, they want it. Okay, they also have probably not very constructive parenting when they were growing up. Okay, and that is why in self-deceptive narcissism, so what happens is this, that you see these people are not very risk-friendly. Okay, they are actually risk-aversive, right? They are looking for confirmation from others, but they can't approach anybody else.
They're very fragile.
They're very fragile. They're very fragile in their ego, for example.
And also they do manipulate to get the work done.
But that's the only thing they end up doing because
they're deceptive.
For their own survival. They do end up in trying to manipulate others, but they get caught, I think, quite fast. So you won't find self-deceptive narcissists
making into the
really in real world in leadership positions.
Right.
And guys, sorry for referring to my book, but if you want to refer to it yourself and anybody's interested, it's still available on Amazon. I'm surprised even after 10 years, more than 10 years. So it's called The Ascent, a Practicing Manager's Growth Mantra, and there is a chapter on narcissism. You can always refer to it if you're really curious and interested in these topics. Yes, Vinay.
Yes. It's an amazing book. You do have to give it a try. Read it out, and you have any questions, you can actually pen it down in the comments. Amit will be more than happy to address it.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
Coming to the traits and the impact it will have, I actually was looking into the traits of all the narcissists. Let's go one by one. Denial being one of the traits.
Yeah.
How does it impact?
Why do I deny something which is real? The reason is this, that if I accept it, it won't rub off on my own personality. Okay, so I deny the existence of it. Of course, this denial as a strong manifestation comes from the reactive narcissist more, who is very severe in reactions and all that. That's why denial is a severe reaction. Okay, you don't see denial completely from the constructive narcissist, on the opposite side of the spectrum. Okay, even other traits like
Rationalization.
Yeah, rationalization is a natural need for, again, most people who have an ego. Now, ego, as you know, I'm sure that, Freud defined these words, three words actually for the human psyche, the ID, id, and the ego and the superego.
Right.
And ego is supposed to be more the reality of you. Okay, and superego is the circumstances, the ecosystem in which forces you and controls your ID, the id, which is the child in you, which demands for more. So the narcissistic tendencies are, in my view, related more to the id, not ego. The ego is more the reality. So
Right.
it's the ecosystem which forces your id towards your ego. So somebody who, when we say in normal English and normal discussion, when we use the word ego, we mean it probably more as the id rather than the ego,
True,
actually.
true.
But let's continue to do that because that's the
There's a way most of
language
them understand.
everybody uses. So if somebody has a deflated ego, it's basically a deflation in their self-esteem. Now, one of the most respected, again, writers, researchers on human psychology is Maslow, Abraham Maslow, right? And so Maslow, in his 1973 paper, he does not use the word narcissism, and I found it very interesting. He does not.
Yes.
But I have tremendous respect for Maslow's theory. This, I think, 43 or 73 pages I read once upon a time. And then I said, no, I mean, it's always a question of semantics, maybe, because the narcissist tendency probably is there in the self-esteem part.
Self-esteem part, yes.
Okay, and Maslow does
bring
explain,
that up.
the self-esteem. So why I need to rationalize is because otherwise my self-esteem gets deflated.
Right.
So it's a normal human need, and if you do not, feel secure about your self-esteem, you cannot even, like Maslow says, be cognizant of the higher needs, like the intellectual needs, or the highest in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your self-actualization. You can never go there unless you have come to terms with your self-esteem. And for a narcissist, it is very difficult to come to terms because he carries this scar from his childhood. I was never appreciated. I was never, approved of. I never got this acknowledgement. So it is constantly, that's why it's a pathological need, is a pathological disorder, for example.
The hunger stays all the time.
The hunger stays all the time. All the decisions, not the constructive, but the reactive narcissist takes are reflective of, his undying hunger, need for gratifying those self-esteem needs, which is about, acknowledgement and approval, and which kind of, translates in an adult life in the hunger for power, fame.
As a trait, grandiosity, how does it impact?
We are not even a middle income country, right? But if you see what are the foreign car companies selling in India, okay,
Yeah.
right? They sell mostly the higher end of the cars. Of course, they sell in hundreds, okay, or a few thousands, okay. But anybody who is successful in India would like to have a good car or a better car, or maybe the best car, right? All the celebrities, somebody having a Rolls-Royce Phantom, for example, okay. I mean, I can speak for myself, for sure. I mean, when I could afford, I bought myself a good car, okay. Not because a lesser price car cannot be driven on the roads. So there is this, or it is a gratification of, it's about entitlement.
Superiority.
Could be, but for me speaking, because you asked me right in the beginning, that was quite a hit, that, yes, I'm a narcissist. So my narcissistic tendency gives me this sense of entitlement that I worked hard in my life, okay, including my wife and my family for sure. And we have earned the entitlement to give us a nice car, okay. And I think that is why I said yes to when you asked me, am I a narcissist? Of course I'm a narcissist. But thankfully, I had reasonably good parenting, okay, thanks to my parents. And so I don't have it on the reactive side, okay. I don't have to keep on changing my car,
Right.
okay. I don't have to get to a situation where I have a Rolls-Royce Phantom. I'm still searching for what more, for example, okay. I can stop somewhere still. So that's why I say probably, hopefully, I'm more a constructive narcissist than a reactive narcissist. Right.
So on attributional egotism, how does it impact?
Yeah, so it is, see, these are, again, of course, these are academics who have found these terminologies, and I've referred to them in my book also. But in simple words, when somebody attributes everything to his or her own ego, okay, I will straight away give the example of what's going on nowadays, Trump's statements, for example. I want to bring peace. Okay, I am the only guy who can bring peace. I am the only guy who can speak to Putin. Okay, everybody has to come to my office, for example, right? So everything is about I. And the moment he feels, I think in the last 48 hours, probably he has felt that this is not going to possible. Immediately he starts blaming others. One of the other traits, I'm sure you have in your notes,
Yes.
is you shift blame, right?
Right.
So the moment he sees it can't rub off on him, there is no attributional, attributes to his own ego that can be rubbed off, he starts shifting it. Oh, Zelensky is a dictator, he's a fool, he's an idiot and all that. And then he starts, oh, I will slap, further tariffs on Putin. 48 hours back, everybody was talking about, oh, he's a friend of Putin. Okay, Americans, some of the Democrats were talking about, oh, he's a Russian asset sitting in our White House. And now he turns tables because he feels unsure of, achieving what he was, trying to get a Nobel Prize for peace maybe. So if he can't get a Nobel Prize, then everybody is responsible for it. He's not responsible anymore. So that is what comes, in attributing everything, for example, or all the attributes find are important is related to my ego, for example.
The anxiety and also the need for
I would say that anxiety is, in a narcissist, it comes from that because it is always in this perennial state of ungratified needs, particularly the reactive narcissist. And hence that individual, that's why it's a pathological disorder.
They feel anxious all the time.
Always is in an anxious mode. Where else can I find it pedestal? Where else can I, get my name attached to something?
Need for admiration.
Need for admiration and also for all the credit. You will see that if somebody is more acute on the spectrum towards the reactive side, and they have reached a CEO position in a company, a good company, wherever, you will find many examples. The moment they see that this company is not going to do well due to many other factors, companies don't do well only because of the CEO, right?
They hop,
right?
they change.
So there can be extraneous issues, there can be economical factors, there can be technology challenges which he alone cannot handle.
Right.
What does he do immediately? He shifts, goes to another company.
Right.
Because he can't, get any more success related to him. The stock price went up because of me, 62%. And now he knows the stock price is going to go down because of global recession that's going through, wars and conflicts and COVID or whatever it is. He escapes. He leaves the stage. You will see that. People who love the stage, they want to always be on the stage, perennially. That's the, reactive narcissist, more on the reactive side that you see. People can't have that patience, for example, okay, that, oh, yes, it will happen. I can go through a trough and come back again. They don't understand the meaning of a sigmoid curve. They only understand a straight line with the biggest slope that can happen in life, and they're always hunting for it.
How will be the impact of these traits in them? How will it impact the organization they're working in? And like you said, it will be a toxic environment for sure, and they cannot.
More the reactive narcissist, yes, it will end up with toxicity
But
for
being
sure.
on a constructive narcissist, how can he be a leader within the organization?
You will have, for example, more acute narcissistic needs person has, which is on the reactive narcissistic side. And that's the reason I refer to that chart so that people can, refer to this themselves. This leader cannot practice empathy. And I'm sure not only us, many people have done podcasts even or written about it. Without empathy, you cannot be a good leader. Because your decisions will be governed by not what others will go through, others will feel, etc., or others' needs are. They will be governed by what your need is, and your need is fame and power and prestige. Okay? So in an organization, if there is no practice of empathy by the leader, it can't be sustainable.
I have one follow-up question. When you say power, prestige, and money will not motivate to that extent as power and prestige, will they stick on to a factor of something as a gain monetarily? They hold on to it. Do they enjoy it, or they want to jump into the next one where they get power and prestige more than that?
That's a very, very interesting question, Vinay. See, it's like this, that I'm sure that I will make a lot of money, but I will not still get the prestige. It won't be my name will be attached. For example, say of a company where you had the founder retiring. Okay, we are a very illustrious company, illustrious founder, Infosys, and Mr. Murthy, when he retired finally. Okay, a professional was brought in after Nandan's also going away, right? But how many people relate to the success of Infosys with Mr. Salil Parekh? They're still related to Nandan Nilekani or Narayan Murthy, right?
Right.
So if Salil Parekh, okay, I offer my apologies to bring his name, but I'm not saying anything bad about him. The point is, if he was a reactive narcissist, okay, he would have left. I have not met the gentleman, but with all respects, my understanding is that he's not. He's probably more a constructive narcissist, but he makes definitely a good amount of money.
True.
But money does not mean that he is also a narcissist. Money plays a different role. If money is giving me the power, if money is giving me the fame, for example, I can host let's say a cricket tournament in my name because I have the money, right? Then that money is important for me. But if I cannot use the money to give me my major needs, which is power, fame, prestige, then that money is not important. The narcissist will go away from there. You cannot buy a narcissist by money alone. You have to give him power, fame, prestige. That's the difference.
Right. So, narcissist as a leader, can we dive deep into it a little more? How will it impact the team around them, and if they have to improvise on that and help the team with their traits and also the organization and stay longer duration?
That's when I think then you're talking about how does a narcissist function better as a leader. Is that your question?
Yes, how they can function better as a leader being a narcissist.
How do I manage my own narcissistic needs?
Yeah, we'll get into how I manage my own narcissistic needs. I'm looking at the perspective of how I can have an impact to the team.
Yeah, fine. I mean, for me, I guess it's kind of, two sides of the same coin, because if I can create an impact on the team, I am also managing my own narcissistic needs, right? Okay. I need to accept, I need to know, I need to have knowledge about what is narcissism. If I'm in denial mode, which is also the acute behavioral aspect of a reactive narcissist, I won't even try to learn what is narcissism. So there is no rescue for an absolute reactive narcissist. I do not believe an absolute reactive narcissist can really help himself or herself or even help others. So, period. If you come across a really reactive narcissist, simply use distance. Either go away from that person, okay, or ignore that person.
Wow.
There is no reform possible. And I'm saying this from what I have learned by also studying not only also and practice both. Yes, now if you are on this spectrum from the reactive towards the constructive narcissist, you have a potential to still be a good leader, for example, who can do good in an organization and also for yourself. Okay. And that is where you have to first accept that you have the narcissistic tendencies. Okay. When asked, Amit, are you a narcissist? You should not beat around the bush and say, oh, well, no, really, etc. No. You have the narcissistic needs, accept it. Now, if you're a little bit more of that, then probably what you have to do is this, that have to have some guardrails. So, to manage your own narcissistic tendencies, for example, and be also, impactful as a good leader, while you still have those narcissistic tendencies, you need these guardrails, okay? And these guardrails, of course, there are guardrails in any organization as processes, systems, decision-making matrices, etc. But even more important than that, okay, is that you have some people who are kind of holding the guardrails of your psyche. You have to have, in literature they call it, you need a sidekick, okay. It sounds quite pejorative, okay, but, or kind of little bit, lesser of a person. But I've seen this in real life, and an intelligent narcissist who is not on the reactive side identifies this fact that he, because of his own psychological limitations of having this narcissistic tendencies, he's not able to, go out and practice the empathy. But he has the intellectual understanding that it is needed to be done. So he takes on a sidekick who does it better, right? Sometimes he does it also for, still gaining the power, fame, etc. Varying in grades, right? This whole spectrum, as I mentioned, from reactive to constructive. So somewhere when the slider is more towards the constructive narcissist, they do understand that they need to understand what is the challenge they have. Like any challenge that we have, for example, right? Okay. So they then read up. And then they get into this that, okay, I need a sidekick. I need somebody as a shield between me and the rest of the organization. Okay, right? I mean, I myself use that, and I think most senior leaders do that, for example, because sometimes you can't even, I used to feel a little bit nervous, talking to the younger people in the organization, because I have this habit of sharing a lot. My management team members came up to me and, Amit, once it is decided, yes, you can, but while you are still, going through it, or we have not yet chosen exactly, it's probably not good that, you are speaking. So I used to keep a little bit myself close. I will still speak to them for sure. But so this is how I handle. And that's why I said to you, yes, I'm a narcissist. But I read upon it, and I think I read upon it to save myself, to not have my downfall, for example,
right.
Completely, and go insane and make others insane. So these are the impacts that you see the toxicity of the organization. You see that there is a distance between the narcissist leader and all the others. Okay, there's just one or two sidekicks that he or she can really, really work with. And they have to, of course, also be kind of yes men. But if the slide is a little bit going towards the constructive side of narcissistic tendencies, then he is also using his intellectual powers to use the sidekick. He knows that, yes, empathy has to be practiced. I can't do it, let so-and-so do it, right. Okay? He knows that, for example, he needs a feedback from the rest of the organization or the team. He cannot probably go and sit with his legs spread, in the hall or in the canteen or on that. He makes another person who can do it. So he has the intelligence and the intellectual capacity to understand, and he finds somebody to do that, for example. Okay? The reactive, more on the reactive side, won't even feel this, won't even feel the need of using these sidekicks, or you can say also the management team members, for example, okay, right? Of course, you will find this probably in my book, and definitely there's a lot of literature that you can find where you see the bad impact part of it. But let me speak of the good impact part of it. The good impact is this, that a narcissist, of course on the constructive side, also is having a very, very firm opinion and firm view about where we should reach. So that's the visionary side of it, okay? Because there is even in the, with a subdued narcissistic tendency or constructive narcissist, for example, he still is a narcissist. He would like to leave a legacy behind. He would like to, leave the scene and feel that, yes, people talk about me.
Admire.
Okay? About the result I created.
Right.
So the result is important for the organization, for the company, for the society, for the nation, right? So you can use a constructive narcissist as a head of, from a nation to a company or a family even, for example, right, to create real value. Because he wants to leave a legacy, he wants to be known, he wants to be in the pages of history, for example. But he is not doing it because everything should be associated only to him. He's okay with that, okay, I was responsible and I used a team of people to achieve the goals, which are the goals of the organization, of the society, or the nation, whatever it is. That's fine. So that's the positive part. And I think I mentioned about when you want complete disruption, okay, right? Because there is complacency, there is, technological change required, there is organizational change required. You have to change the strategy dramatically, for example. Somebody, you want to shut down some part of your business which is no longer relevant, and you have 5,000 people working there. So this is again here, you bring in a narcissist which is more on the reactive side.
Right.
Okay. Of course, you first check that this person is still wanting to, go towards the goal that you, and who is this you, will come to in a second, that you want the company to go to. And this is normally, this you is the board.
Board, right.
Okay. The board has to have the wisdom to find a CEO who will bring in disruption, but yet will take the company towards where they believe it should be taken.
Right.
That's the function of the board, for example. And they do it knowingly that this disruptive leader will create the disruption and probably leave some mess behind, but the past will be erased.
Right.
So
That's a very good
sometimes
insight. That's a very good
in
insight.
organizational change, you knowingly bring in not a very constructive narcissist, but
Reactive
somebody who is more on the reactive side. Not absolutely, but sometimes a little bit. And yes, they succeed in creating the disruption in everything they do, from vision to strategy to people, and they leave behind some damage, but it's not, the damage is less, for example. That's why I said this is the board's responsibility.
Right.
They take a decision based upon the risk that yes, there will be some, dead bodies left behind, okay. In some context, I remember that, somebody who was like that was used, and then there was this big news article saying that he left behind a burned garden, for example. Yes, but then the garden can be still sown, but, the whole society was probably helped from the company point of view. The company started growing again. It was not growing. So sometimes you use, that's another side of, using
Right.
a narcissist.
In
for
favor
example.
of the organization and how
Yes,
it can be.
yes.
That's amazing. That's a very good insight. Now coming to, like, they leave the patch burnt or they leave the impact. I want to understand the next topic, which I thought is dealing with the narcissist. So I came across your book. So I'll read your book as to what it is.
Don't read the book. I think hopefully
The
few lines.
patch, a few lines of the book. The reactive narcissist is better avoided in normal life. Sadly, such people are the most difficult to form any kind of relationship.
Yes.
They're better suited for solo roles that gives them enough prestige and power. With more and more enterprise becoming a knowledge organization, there are not many such roles in the organization anymore. A reactive narcissist cannot be anymore an organizational man or a woman. Now, on the other hand, the constructive narcissist can be a boon for most leadership positions. The great opportunity lies in the constructive narcissist working with a volitional engagement to the objectives of the enterprise.
Okay.
Now, this is what volition is the word which I've been hearing from you, motivational to volitional engagement and other podcasts, and so many times I've heard you. Why here on the constructive narcissism you've brought in?
Yeah, see, the point is that volitional engagement, as you know by argumentation and experience, has been as a practicing manager leader, as opposed to motivational engagement, where somebody is motivated by what he or she will get as a gratification for his needs, okay? So that gratification is the motivation for which somebody has to lead towards a future goal objective. Whereas volitional engagement is where you are basically driven by the purpose, by the goal that you are volitionally following. You are not doing it because of some gratification you need instead of the goal. So the goal itself is your gratification. Okay, and at least in my little life, I found this, very, very famous saying from the Gita, and I don't even know any other because I heard only these things. Karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So I could relate, at least for myself, the karma, when you say, is like the volitional purpose. You choose that this is what. You are not aiming for anything else. Ma phaleshu kadachana doesn't mean that, you don't want results. You want results. Your result is that goal. Your result is that karma that you have chosen to achieve, for example. So therefore, the constructive narcissist who is able to still empathize, who is still able to bring in allies, build allies, for example, but yes, still has a pinch of narcissism to attach himself or herself, for example, self, to the final result. Now, if that person is volitionally engaged and not motivationally driven, you are driven by the gratification, which is the shorter term, right? Whereas volitional engagement is about the larger purpose, larger goal. You have chosen to reach so and so place, right? And that, when combined with a constructive narcissist, has, I think, a more than fair chance of success, because both the powers vectors work. One is the volitional engagement, another is also that he wants to see his name attached to that final success, right? And that is why in volitional engagement you see certain similarities to narcissistic traits. One is, for example, anxiety. Okay, but the volitionally engaged person uses anxiety like a catapult to plunge into complexity, to go into and look for this very, very distant goal, for example. Whereas anxiety is a permanent state for a reactive narcissist.
Yeah.
So that's different. He's suffering because of this, but a volitionally engaged person actually uses anxiety, as I said, as a catapult, pitchfork himself towards the complexity, towards what is beyond what they say the Rubicon, for example. And you jump across the Rubicon, or cross the Rubicon in your mind. That's why this sentence over there.
I mean, risk of misunderstanding or taking a narcissist to a volitionally engaged leader. That is something which I want to
thank you for that. Very important you pointed out, because a volitionally engaged leader also can be mistaken as a narcissist, and vice versa. A narcissist, a constructive narcissist in action, can also be mistaken as a volitionally engaged leader. Now, how do you make out the difference? The difference is you study the decisions and the choices the individual, the leader makes, and you see whether the decisions are always leading towards the purpose of the larger entity, organization, society, nation, company, family, whatever, or you see that some decisions are related to his self being related to the success. The moment you find the self as a component of decision making by the leader, then it's more the narcissist, not the volitionally engaged. But you can have a both. Now it's a question of, this is why managing machines is probably very easy, because the machines don't have any grades. Whatever it is designed for or programmed for it, they do exactly the same thing. But we human beings, we are much better than machines, obviously, and obviously therefore we are also very complex, right? So to kind of identify the subtle differences between how much volitional engagement is there, or how much narcissism has come in, which in the spectrum between reactive narcissism and constructive narcissism, where is this guy fitting, at 81% or in 18%? Yes, you can differentiate between 18 and 81, but can you really differentiate between 71 and 81? It's difficult. So you have to really spend a lot of time and be clear in your mind about these things. But I can say as a practicing manager that it helps to know these issues, and it helps you in navigating your own career, in navigating your own life.
So let me come up with a scenario which probably we can
Sure.
have them involved into it.
Sure.
So I have made two scenarios. Like I want you to imagine two leaders.
Okay.
The first one being, a leader is extremely confident and persuasive.
Mm-hmm.
He is also dominate nature, where he dominates the meetings, but they always have a compelling vision. They are excited to follow, but they don't take feedbacks well. This is one style of a leader. There is another one, the leader B will call it, is engaging but also humble. He seeks input from the team and also open for feedback. They don't command attention in the same way as the leader A, but their engagement feels more genuine. Which one is more appealing, and which one you would rather have it as your leader?
Well, exactly. Since you brought in the point as your leader, so depending on the kind of personality, psychological personality I will like either leader A or B. So I can't speak for others, because the leader A obviously is, you use the word dominant, for example, doesn't listen so well, and what are the other traits you mentioned there?
Yeah, he's always compelling.
Compelling others, you mean to say?
Yeah, he's compelling with his
But has
vision.
also a very strong vision.
Strong vision, yes.
Has a compelling vision.
Yes.
Now, that is not what you have not used for the leader B.
Yes.
So if there is no compelling vision for me, he is of no use to me.
Exactly.
First thing and foremost.
Right.
I may find that person, nice to, enjoy a cup of tea or a glass of wine, for example. But if it comes to the company and he is the leader of the company, I think he will not. Where will he lead me or us? He doesn't have a compelling vision.
Right.
Right? So there is work to be done. There's a big gap in the leadership in action.
Right.
Okay, now the other guy has a complete vision but is dominating, doesn't listen so much, maybe a little bit narcissistic or maybe more, right? But the vision is there. Now how I handle, the other side, the narcissistic side, is probably what we touched upon. That is where, for example, I have to keep distant when I see that his narcissism is what is driving him most, but I have to contribute and participate where I see that his vision is driving him more, for example.
Right.
If I can contribute to the vision, I do that, I walk back. Okay, at least the vision will be fulfilled if I'm aligned with the vision. If I'm not aligned with the vision and I have a dominating person who is a leader who doesn't listen, then I have to find some other place to go.
Very true, very true.
But if the vision is fine with me, it's like, even in a political leadership. I guess, a political leader, for example, who people feel will at least make the company go somewhere, but has other narcissistic behaviors around him, they excuse him.
Right.
Because they don't have to live with this guy.
True.
Right? So they are saying, okay, as long as he builds some, infrastructure and this and that, and the country keeps growing or developing, we are fine. So that's how it is. I mean, but some people may say, no, I don't care, I care about values, I care about principles, ethics, and, equality, and, absolute real practice of democracy, freedom of speech, etc., etc. Then that person says, no, I would rather, go with the leader B instead of leader A. I don't want to be dominated. I don't want to be told what I should, I should eat, I should drink, I should wear, etc., etc. So it depends on who you are. It depends on the followership. That's why the followership, I have another chapter in my book which is about followership, is basically it ends with that the followers are also leaders. Now if the followers are not leaders, then you are basically, like this story about the bagpiper, and all the rats were following him. So, but no, human beings thankfully are not rats.
That gives me a scope for a follow-up on that. When you say the followers and the next generation leaders who will be the Gen Zs or the millennials getting into the top leadership. Okay. So now one is appealing, leader B is appealing, and it is more on taking feedback and he's comforting you. The other one is on a more of an organizational wise, he is better off because even though he is cutthroat, he is not as appealing as the leader B, but it is doing much more impactful work for the organization. So how will it impact on these two generations to come and be a leaders?
Well, Vinay, that, when this topic about managing or leading millennials and Gen Zs came, I chose to invite in guests who are practicing leaders today because I'm too far away from the Gen Zs of today, being in my mid-60s, and I've hung up my boots already more than 8 years. So therefore, that is why, we will have a lot of episodes where there are practicing leaders, 4 of them who are talking about millennials and Gen Zs, but yet now I'm, sitting on the hot seat with Vinay shooting questions at me. And I've learned a little bit from also, for sure, listening to the other practicing leaders, including my good friend Vinay, is this, that I would say that, see, the way at least the Gen Z caste has been explained by practicing leaders of today. I understand that they are not really looking too much into the future, but they are very, very serious about, the values and ethics that they believe is true. For example, freedom of speech. For example, that, I did something good and I need the appreciation now, I need the reward now. Okay? So this short term you can say also that it's fair. It depends on who the leader is, for example, right? Leading the Gen Z, for example. So having said only that much, because otherwise I will be repeating the other episodes, let that be a suspense because we have 4 different leadership styles coming out shortly. The way you have painted these 2 leaders, A and B, I don't know, if I'm a Gen Z who is, in an insta gratification kind of mode, I want to see results, I want to be in a good place as per my values and systems, and I value ethics, etc. I will probably keep on jumping from, and I don't want to be dominated, So my bigger need probably is I don't want to be dominated. I had enough of domination from my maybe parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts. I want to escape. I want to be in a rocket which takes me, with huge escape velocity out of this
Right.
prison of getting dominated. I don't want to be in this, shell of managing others' expectations. We did this episode on beyond expectations, managing expectations, right? So therefore, I think they will first shirk that dominant leader, and they probably will be dissatisfied participants with the leader B, but I guess they will be on a constant search for something between A and the B, because even the B will not really inspire them so much, okay, but I think they will shirk more the dominant leader because they don't want anybody to dominate them. They don't want anybody to tell them this is what is right, this is what is wrong. So they will definitely shirk away from your leader A example. That's what I believe. So our Gen Z friends and millennials, please put in a comment if you feel my analysis is wrong about you, and if I'm wrong, you already have my apologies. But please do comment.
I have something for them again.
Uh-huh.
Audience, I want you to look at this. I have a poll for you. Pen down your comments in the comment section when you take a listen to this. I'll read it out. Think about your best leader or a mentor you had. Okay, I'll tell you the traits. Who commands attention and dominate conversation, but always has a compelling vision. This is number one. Second one being encourage open dialogue and made you feel valued. And the third one being seem engaging, but only cared about when they needed something for you. So these are the three options which I've put it in the screen. Look at it, reflect upon it, and leave a comment. We would like to know about it. Now, not without the least, before we started, I asked you a question, if at all you have a boss who is a narcissist. So I would want Amit to share light upon for our audience who have their bosses who has narcissistic needs, and how to overcome that, how to mitigate or manage that.
First of all, consider yourself also as a leader. Because if you are not a leader, you are essentially choosing, different versions of the leader B example, okay, who does not dominate you. It's all who does not do this, does not do that. But be clear, and it helps when you think of yourself as a leader, be clear about what you want. Okay, what you want in a leader in your organization. Now, I guess that you will not want this, what we described as the reactive narcissist as a leader. If you have a very reactive narcissist as a leader, I don't have to tell you, I think you'll already be on your way back from the gates of that organization or company before even you hear me. On the other hand, when you have a constructive narcissist or nearer to a constructive narcissist, which is not very severe, reactions over there, and the person still can talk to people, has the power of empathy, etc. I guess that is where you have to manage the narcissistic need of the other person, because you are choosing to be a leader, without sacrificing your purpose of life, without sacrificing what you want to have your life as. If you can kind of add to that person's narcissistic needs, yes, it is fine. But that's really a choice about how you look at your own ethics to lead your life, because it's not about just a job, it's about your life. And I guess for our Gen Zs, and that's what I understand, I may still be wrong and I stand to be corrected, that they are more probably concerned about the morals and principles and ethics rather than in an organizational situation. Of course, on the other side, I do hear that there are these risks that we hear about drug addiction or all that stuff. So they are human beings, and every individual, whether you are a Gen Z or a baby boomer like me, you have the choice to be a leader. You have the choice to not only kind of take on from our other 4 episodes from different kinds of leaders whom I've hosted, and they will come live shortly, or from Vinay or me, but you have the choice to still be a leader. If you do not choose to be a leader, that's a different ball game, and but still it's about your life. So on the other hand, I think in another 5 years, you have no choice but to be a manager, but to be a leader, and in another few years, you have also no choice to, for example, maybe even become a parent. And then the kind of parenting you offer to your children is what will make them into either, the reactive narcissist or the constructive narcissist, or with no narcissistic needs, without this pinch of narcissism, then it's very difficult to be functional, at least in the game of leadership, in leading your life even, for example, because you are not sure. Yeah. So it's a choice up to you, Vinay. It's never easy real life, right? That's all I can say to your question, for now.
Thank you so much, Amit. It was really
always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Vinay.
Thank you so much, all audience, for taking a listen at what we had to say here and what Amit had to share regarding narcissism. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Do let us know what you feel, and do participate in the poll questions which we have asked, and we would like to hear from you in the comment section. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and please, if you are not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to the channel. And as Vinay mentioned, it's a blessing for me and Vinay that we really find your comments and your questions over there. Thank you very much again.
We would like to hear from you with respect to what should be our episodes going forward. What would you want to hear from us, and what are the kind of topics we are interested in? Do take some time out and do pen it down for us. Thank you.
Thank you.